remove themselves or rethink the dollar, or aka dump the dollar. President Erdogan in Turkey tells his citizens in order to help the country out, it'd be in your best interest to go under your pillow, grab the dollars, the euros, and gold. And as you tell from today's title, how the baby boomers will lose their retirement nest egg, I want to share with you a couple thoughts as well as some articles on how the next market correction will be catastrophic for a lot of people. Always cash crisis. We're talking about Venezuela once again. Systemic important banks. They removed the 1,000 called monetary awareness. All right, we're live. Midday news update. I got a couple articles I want to share with you and get your thoughts on what's going on today. So a lot of good things, not necessarily good things, but a lot of things happening right now. And so one of the things that is not getting much attention is just the overall costs of living in this great nation we're in if you're in the United States of America. And so, of course, we got this homelessness situation, and then we're just looking at the fact that the Federal Reserve can't seem to find their inflation target no matter where they look. And so it has a lot to do with the fact that their measuring tools are not calibrated to actually look for real inflation from a micro level as far as it impacting you and I the way that it does. So they're looking for something on the more macro level, according to their own metrics, which is completely flawed, because I got a couple articles I want to share with you about some things where inflation is obvious, and then there's some other areas where it's not quite so or not being talked about as such. But that being the case, welcome to this live stream. Looking forward to getting to find out a chance to find out what's going on with you guys. Also, as always, if there's anything worthy of news-wise that I might not touch on right here, definitely let us know in the chat, and I'll try to shine some light on it. And so I'll give you about 7-8 articles and let you do your homework yourself. Just want to highlight or shine some light on some mainstream stories. And so what caught my attention today was the very concept of inflation. And so it's one of the things where inflation is simply, from an Austrian economic standpoint, just the inflation of the monetary supply, which shows up in the price of goods and services. So basically, there's only so many goods and services, food, water, shelter, whatever, that's priced in your national currency, but there's going to be an unlimited supply of those monetary units to acquire those finite amount of goods. Therefore, price has to go up. And so we're seeing the price go up in a lot of ways, but yet it's not really mentioned as far as how it impacts us in our daily lives. And so came across a great article I'm going to get to, and some good visual aids that will paint a very unique picture, which is very realistic. So as always, with those tuning in, we got Analog Beats, we got James, we got Simon, we got Blunt News, Low Blood Pressure, we got J Mac, Spirit King here. Hey. So with that being the case, I want to dive right in. And so be short and concise, give you the articles, let you do your own homework. And so the very first article I want to bring up is from Advisor. So I'll actually put it up on the screen so you can see it as well. And so it's from the Advisor Perspectives. And so this article here, it's entitled, "What is Inflation in the Consumer Price Index? What is inflation and what does it mean to you?" And so what stood out was these visual aids here. And I'm going to thumb through it as fast as I can, but cover the bulk of it. And so it talks about back in 2010, Fed adjusted its aggressive monetary policy designed to keep the banks in order. And so it says, let's do some analysis on the Consumer Price Index, the best known measure of inflation done by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And so it talks about the pie chart below illustrates the components of the Consumer Price Index for urban consumers, the CPIU, which we'll refer to as just the CPI. So here, it looks like an updated as of December 2018, this visual aid here. And so as we can see, it breaks down the categories of our daily necessities for the most part: food, housing, apparel, transportation, medical care, recreation, your average cost of just basically living in this great land that we live in. And as we scroll down here, and so this is where we got some alternative perspective and alternative analysis being brought into the equation, because now they're going to do a little bit of homework on their own and give you some better numbers. And so it said the slices are listed in order, but by the BLS in their tables, not the relative size. So it talks about food, shelter, clothing. And so it says the chart below shows the cumulative percentage change in price for each of these 8 categories since 2000. And so this is as of December 2019, which is current. And this is data that's through November, done by DS Hort, whatever source this is. But as you guys can see, since the year 2000, So so we're approaching a new decade now. So go back 20 years ago and just think about what you could have done with a dollar. And so the whole rethinking the dollar concept, a lot of that plays into what you can actually do for a dollar. And in 2000, a dollar carried a lot more purchasing power than it does today. Therefore, you see the Federal Reserve consumer dollar chart where it goes down to like 0.3 cents. And so depending on how you judge that chart or measure that chart, I would say that the dollar is probably well below the 0 point in regards to what an actual single dollar can purchase. And so if you go back to 1913 when the Federal Reserve was created, a dollar was basically, for the most part, a day's wage for some people. But you can get a grocery cart and pay a bill or two with a dollar with no problem. Whereas now with a dollar, you need a dollar with some tax and some change on top of it to actually get a pack of gum these days. So it just tells you how poor of a steward the Federal Reserve has been towards maintaining their primary product, which is the Federal Reserve note. But real short and simple. So since 2000, not seasonally adjusted, here is a chart of everything that is measured on this little graph right here, the CPI, components, food, housing, apparel, transportation, medical care, and recreation. So here's all those actual charts done and given from a little bit of a different perspective. And it says since 2000. So food and beverage is in the mix here. So everything, for the most part, out of all these categories has increased significantly, of which healthcare is over 100%. So your medical costs since 2000 has went up over 100%, probably more than likely. And then we have the next one is other goods and services, is up 75%. We have housing, which is up more than 60%. So are we surprised with the inflation of the housing market? Not at all. Then we have food and beverage is almost up 60%. So whatever your basket of goods were in 2000 for your family or for you or whatever, it's 60 times more expensive now. And then we have education, which is up almost 40%. We know what the costs are for either private school or we know, of course, college student loans where everybody's tapped out there. Only thing that's relatively stable is clothing. And I wonder because it has a lot to do with the competition and the variety of clothing manufacturers that makes clothing relatively cheaper, depending on whatever you're shopping for. But I thought this was worth bringing to your attention because, once again, according to the Federal Reserve, they can't find inflation. But yet, if you look at these numbers here, according to this data from 20 years ago, clearly every area of your life has gone up in cost. Now, what they're looking for, obviously, they're looking in the wrong areas or using the wrong metrics to find that number that they can't find average of 2% inflation. What they're probably meaning to say is that we're looking to have literally 2% inflation or 2% devaluation of our currency. And that's what they're referring to, actually, because this chart shows that your cost of living has gone up significantly. And in 2020 and beyond, I can see these charts here going up a lot higher based upon the fact that the system's broken. And I'll share my thoughts on that a little further. But here we go. Here's a little more of a breakdown. And so one thing they don't include is just the cost of energy and housing itself. So they have it in subcategories. And so here's a little visual aid here that talks about energy. So if you look at this, the background here talks about energy and inflation in the background. And so since 2000, this blue background here shows how high or how much more expensive energy costs, whether it be fuel for your car, housing, or just mostly gasoline, it says here. But just overall, all the energy measures as far as the heating your house and cooling your house and all that stuff like that, electricity is factored into this, I would imagine. So it's going up as well, just as high as everything else in your life. But for some reason, they can't find it. College tuition, an inflation nightmare. So college tuition has went up, as it says here, 170%. Outside of Medicare costs, which is 100. So to go to school to get a better education for a job that's not going to be there in this upcoming decade, that was conventional advice. But if you follow conventional moving forward, you will be guaranteed to lose out. Just my opinion. Scroll down some more. There's more data here, but yeah, this is just some things that you won't get anywhere else outside of alternative media. So I thought I would bring this to your attention, let you guys do what you do with it. And so I'll put it in the chat for those that want to touch on it. Feel free to do so. Let me check in with the chat real quick and see if there's any thoughts or any questions or suggestions out there. And as a reminder, I want to make sure I encourage you guys, all these social media platforms down here, primarily these two here and these three over here, definitely set up an account. They're all free, of course. But yet the three on the outside over here and two over here are more alternative media minded. So you got a better chance of not being disrupted and getting updated when need be. So make sure you guys do that. And then let me check on the chat and see if there's anything going on in the chat. Let me see here. Not at all. So let me know if it's streaming smoothly so that I can continue going, because I'm not sure. It says, man, milk about 20 years ago was like $1.70. It says, David, you can find milk for $4 now. It says a carton of cigarettes was $14. And so that's definitely an expensive habit. You might want to kick that if you can. When I was a kid in 1980, I would walk to the store to buy a pack of cigarettes for my sister for 25 cents. I remember $2.99 value meals at Burger King. Don't we all? Okay, Gary D says it's looking good. Okay, appreciate it. So let's move on to the next one. And as always, I'm going to share these with you guys so you guys can do your own homework. Just want to bring it to your attention. It said, is the Fed gearing up for a new round of quantitative easing? Here are some possible signs. And so here's a visual aid once again that caught my attention that I was like, man, like this is the real deal. Like, this is what's really going on. Look at this monthly change in millions of dollars. And so look at all this injection into the system. And we know the first three, QE, Q1, Q2, 1, 2, and 3 were emergency measures. So with what's going on now with this repo lending, would this be considered an emergency measure? So my personal opinion, and I'm assuming a lot of you out here would agree, is that the system has already broken in regards to them being able to contain things in a orderly fashion. Therefore, this activity we're experiencing now, as far as the unwinding of all that liquidity that was provided, and then the sudden rampant in what is labeled here as a question mark QE4, lets me know that something behind the system has broken. And now these are emergency measures to keep it from becoming mainstream news, which will then cause a panic, which will then cause, as the video I did earlier about, the money being removed from all those funds, there will be no stopping. There will be no containing a panic that comes in this next go round, because there's no way you can instill confidence in a globally systemic event, because the dominoes will hit everywhere. So even if they try to instill confidence in the mainstream media here in the U.S., Europe is going to be problematic. Australia is going to go under. Japan is going to go under. So all the developed nations, which are the most indebted, will have issues. And there's no way of really spinning off some good news on that. So just my 2 cents here. But it says developed markets and synchronized easing. And so we have Federal Reserve, ECB, and the Bank of Japan all started off with some easing type policies, dropping rates. And so here we are now at the point where Bank of Japan is already below zero. European Central Bank is below zero. And the Federal Reserve, as of today, Jerome Powell may not cut. It doesn't really matter, because we ultimately know where this has to go. It has to go to where everyone else is at. So do you think that the European Central Bank could stay in negative territory and come out of negative in an environment where everyone around them is imploding? And then you think Japan, that's been negative for the last 20 years almost, can all of a sudden increase rates at the same time their central bank has bought over half the stock market, half the government debt? Because who's going to buy that stuff? It's no way of selling that stuff to anybody. What fool would be willing to buy something that's already worthless? So, yeah, so information there if you guys are interested. But yet, whether he cuts today or not, as far as the FOMC Fed funds rate, whether they do it or not, it doesn't matter. They have to eventually, because that's where the system is headed. Next article here, it says accounting and freight and fraud and freight recession topples Celadon, largest truckload carrier bankruptcy in U.S. history. So from the video I did yesterday, it talks about Celadon, and it was what caught my eye here. It's labeled as the largest truckload carrier bankruptcy in U.S. history. And so it says 93% of this morning, nearly nothing, or practically nothing. So whatever that means. So the company shares plunged 93% this morning, which assuming this was on over the weekend. So the shares plunged 93% this morning, nearly nothing, 41 cents on Friday to practically nothing, 2.7 cents as of probably either today or yesterday. I'm not even sure where it's at today. But think about all the people who were holding shares in Celadon and all of a sudden now are on the losing end of this ship here. And one thing I can probably be willing to guarantee is that the executives, those on the board, those that knew what was going on, knew that for the last year or two, I believe I heard that they were having issues with having to sell off different divisions and just being heavily indebted. I would imagine that a lot of those people who knew this was coming already decided to sell their shares well in advance and left the uninformed holding a bag of worthless equity. So, yeah, last one out, always get burnt if you can get out. But that's just my 2 cents. And so here, let's keep it moving right along. Next one here. Fears. This is from Market Insider. It says fears of a slowdown in the U.S. housing market are mounting, and Home Depot just slashed its 2020 sales outlook. So we got one of the biggest commercial home improvement stores or whatever they're called slashing their outlook. And so that's not good because home builders and corporations and construction companies use these type of services here to build. And so if people are not buying, that means there's no genuine building. Therefore, that means housing will have some problems, which it's already been happening. Now they're starting to tell us more about it. So once it hit mainstream news, it's already old news. So expect it to be 5-10 times worse. But it says a home improvement chain on Wednesday cut its sales forecast for 2020, signaling to investors that there could be weakness in the housing markets ahead. Shares fell 2% early trading day today. So once again, those that are in the board, they knew what was going on. And so those that were in the know, all the executives were preparing by probably selling off some of their shares. So I wonder why the shares fell today 2%. Was it because those that are holding a lot of those equity stocks in this company here decided to just say, hey, let's make sure we dial back a little bit before we announce this? And so it says Home Depot expects total sales growth in 2020 between 3.5-4%. Not likely. Even if the company's sales fall at the top of the range, it would bring sales to about $114 billion at the end of the fiscal year ending in January 2021. Once again, those are all numbers that they are trying to sell you to keep confidence that everything is okay. But if you believe it, it's on you. Articles here if you're interested in reading more. Next article here. And so here's another idea of U.S. consumer prices. And so just as we started off today, for those that are new to the stream, watch the replay, go back to the beginning. You'll get the whole visual aid that I shared. But it talks about inflation. U.S. consumer prices jump most in a year, but goods costs decelerate. So consumer prices jump, costs go down. How does that plan out? So it says year over year, says rise of 2.1 year over year, the biggest jump since November. So we got a little bit of a spike here in the CPI. And so here's more visual aids here. It says the shelter index rose 0.3% in November. The index for rent also rose 0.3%, while the index for owners equivalent rent increased 0.2%. So more renters. So rents have gone up, whereas in the amount of owners of homes in equivalent to rent is not as high. So interesting there. So we see 2010 it dropped significantly. Could we perhaps be on the downturn in on this far right portion of this little graph right here that I have on the screen? We will see. But once again, more visual aids here to get you to wondering and question. So here we have a visual aid from Bloomberg. It says nothing here to spook the Fed too much ahead of today's FOMC. It says the consumer expect minimal price pressures over the long term. The University of Michigan measure long-term inflation expectations match a record low in their preliminary December survey. So it looks like the urban consumer commodities has gone down, while the urban community services, less energy services, has gone up. So that's a big divergence right there. That is a big divergence right there in regards to confidence. So I'll put this in the chat if you guys want to find out more for yourself. Feel free to do so. And as always, I want to acknowledge Mr. Justin March for that love offering to the channel. Appreciate it greatly. Let me check in with the chat real quick and see what else is going on out here. And as always, any thoughts or subject matters you guys want me to touch on, feel free to do so. And so it says, hey, Mike, they keep on error for your messages. They trying to hide some brothers. You bringing up the truth. 404 messaging. So where are they 404? Error 404. Where's that at? Let me know, please. Because mainstream media has gone black. Oh, so all the articles I'm sharing are 404. Unfortunately, the crash is going to be worldwide. It says, I'm glad my house payment is only 1/5 of my monthly income. Good stuff. It says, yeah, and we will be global. Okay. So let's keep it moving right along. And so here's an article here. I'll just give it a title. It's kind of lengthy, but I'll let you thumb through it. It says a new reason for the Fed to cut rates. And so I didn't get a chance to go through it, but I thought the subject heading was interesting, so I'll dive into it later for myself. But I'll just share it with you right now if you have interest in doing so for yourself. And so today, doing somewhat of a little bit of a rush job because I'm having Mr. Doug Casey on in a couple hours, and so I have some things to take care of. And so it says meat prices spike 8% in Brazil, threatening a holiday gathering mainstay for many. So looks like this upcoming holiday season, Christmas season rather, might be a little pricey in Brazil, and so therefore that's going to cut down the turkey carving, ham, and whatever else you have out there in Brazil, which is good to say that it might be a little bit pricey here as well. Whatever happens in other countries tend to make its way to the mainland here as well. But it says the price of beef, pork, chicken, and the country are experiencing a sharp rise, even while inflation elsewhere in the countries remains low. So once again, when you hear stories about inflation everywhere else remaining low, question that. The meats are up 8.1 month over month in November, threatening to take the main course off the table at the Brazilian celebrations of the upcoming Christmas season. So Brazil is having some meat issues. So inflation is a problem in Brazil as well, in more than one ways, I'm sure. I'll put the article in the chat if you guys are interested in finding out more for yourself. And then on one of the last two articles here, let's see if it pops up. No, I'll skip that one. I don't want to talk about that one. So one thing that is completely inflated and something that was brought to my attention this morning that I could never, ever see myself actually even consider looking at, like apart from this article here. I won't even go farther than this article. But I don't know how many Apple fans I got out there, but Apple, the morning after, Apple is 52,000 Mac Pro. And so just this Mac Pro, this big bundle of metal, has no real significant amount of gold or silver in it apart from the circuitry, but they're charging $52,000 plus for a fully loaded. And of course, other than this bells and whistles here, okay, it has some specs. Okay, but is it $52,000 plus worth of specs? I'll let you determine the true value of that item there. And so my personal opinion is that is where the inflation is obvious. And when you see bananas going for $120,000 on a wall, taped with duct tape, that is the real inflation. Those are more so consumer good inflationary type of things where only someone who have money to spend, money to burn would actually buy those things. But I imagine in the next decade, those type of purchases will be very far in between because most people, your average person, will be more so concerned with their daily bread as opposed to being able to live the lifestyle that they're currently living now as this world changes. And so there's going to be a lot of unpleasantness, but yet, as always, for every problem, there will be opportunities. And so I'm looking forward to sharing opportunities that I deem worth your time starting in 2020 with the new channel I will be starting. And so more details to come, but it will incorporate your faith. There's no way you can get around your faith because you will need it this next decade, probably more than any other time in your life, regardless of whatever your personal situations is in your own household. This is going to go, what's happening now will definitely impact your household and beyond. And so definitely I believe there's some things that God wants you guys to hear about. So I'm going to try to do my best with that. But that being the case, about to dial back. Sweet and simple. This is a short one because I have an interview coming, a couple interviews later on today. and they're going to be good. So tune back in at 2:30 p.m. Tell a friend, bring somebody with you, and listen to Mr. Doug Casey. And so hopefully everything goes smoothly. Last time I was supposed to have him on, we had some miscommunication errors and whatnot because he's currently in Argentina. And so, a little bit of different environment down there right now. But with that being the case, I appreciate everybody taking time to tune in. If you've enjoyed this back and forth, definitely give it a thumbs up. Click the button beneath this and then grab any of these articles that I share with you over here in the chat. Share them individually or so that you can incorporate a little bit of alternative spin on top of it. Because if you rely upon giving this information to family and friends in your social media feed, they'll probably listen to someone that's reading off a teleprompter. And so me, there's no teleprompter in front of me, just a camera. These are just my thoughts and my opinions, of course. So share this whole video with them so they'll be able to decipher it and just prove me wrong. That's okay. I'm cool with that. Or they can become aware and awake and take some action. So that being the case, definitely come back in a couple hours. And then for those that want to be a blessing to the channel, as always, I have to make sure I put this out there because I have a gang of things I want to get done. But of course, it still costs some paper. It still costs a couple of those reserve notes to get it done at this current moment. So consider becoming a Patreon sponsor. Interview, low blood pressure, 2:30 p.m. in literally 2 hours. I'm going to have Doug Casey on. So come back and bring some questions for Mr. Casey. We're going to do a live stream with that one, so it should be fun. And we go from there. But as always, I want to make sure I bring to your attention the importance of taking advantage of manipulation in the market. So we have two beauties right here. We got the 5 ouncer and then we got the 1 ouncer. Information beneath this video. They are one-of-a-kind items here. One is thicker than the other, of course. This is 5, this is 1. Take advantage of the opportunity to get weight at an affordable price. A lot more affordable than it will be definitely at the end of 2020, I believe. But that being the case, that is all she wrote for this afternoon. See you in a couple hours. Tell a friend and see you guys then. And I'll leave you with this last little note here, a little plug for the Patreon. Hey there, sorry for this interruption, but I wanted to bring something to your attention. If you've been enjoying this live stream, why don't you partner with me and be a support to the channel via Patreon membership for just a minimum of $5 a month. All you have to do is scroll down beneath this video here, click the Patreon link, then consider donating as little as $5 a month towards the channel. A little bit of crumbs can go a long way, and I appreciate your support. Now, let's get back to this live stream. Hey there, hope all is well. Back at you today with some more RTD News updates. And as you can tell from today's title, Congress is coming after your 401k. America's pension crisis is getting worse. I'm going to be covering several different articles, all dealing with the ongoing pension crisis we're experiencing here in America and what is to come. And so we're only 4 days into the new year, and already we have news about countries deciding to remove themselves or rethink the dollar, or aka dump the dollar. President Erdogan in Turkey tells his citizens in order to help the country out, it'd be in your best interest to go under your pillow, grab the dollars, the euros, and gold. And as you tell from today's title, how the baby boomers will lose their retirement nest egg, I want to share with you a couple thoughts as well as some articles on how the next market correction will be catastrophic for a lot of people.